welcome to Chatty AF, the anime feminist podcast. My name is Caitlin, and I'm a writer and editor for the site, as well as running my own blog. I have a heroin problem.
Hi, I'm Dee Hogan, a writer and editor for AniFem, and I'm also the owner of the anime blog, The Josei Next Door.
Hey, I'm Vrai Kaiser. I'm an editor and contributor to Anime Feminist, and you can find me all over the internet by throwing Vrai Kaiser into Google.
So today we're going to be talking about the first 7 episodes of the 90s shoujo classic Fushigi Yugi, which is a series that we all have our own personal histories with. Fushigi Yugi began its life as a manga penned by 22-year-old Yu Watase in 1992 and running in the shoujo manga anthology Shoujo Comic. It tells the story of Miaka Yuki, a 15-year-old girl who was pulled into another universe through a book and made the priestess of Suzaku. It was first adapted as an anime in 1995 and ran for 52 episodes, plus 3 OAV series for a total of 13 episodes. It first began its U.S. run in 1998 in the Viz manga anthology magazine Animerica Extra, at a time where shoujo manga was really rarely released in the U.S. Since then, it has also inspired a series of prequel light novels exploring the lives of the cast, and 2 prequel manga about Miaka's predecessors. So, let's talk about sort of how we came to Fushigi Yugi, because I feel like we all have pretty long histories with it.
I feel like history is one way of putting it, yes.
How old were you guys when you first got into it? Because I was 12 years old. Just a little impressionable preteen.
I think 13. I may have turned 14 while we were watching it, but it was around that time because it was my 8th grade year.
Yeah, I was 12 into 13 as well. It definitely hits those middle school buttons. That is entirely the target audience for this series.
Yeah, I feel like you have to be in middle school to really buy into all of the melodrama, but at the same time, it has a lot of stuff that's really not super appropriate for.
Well, you say that.
Yeah, it gets a little rough later on.
Yeah.
But the way it handles those subjects is so entirely in keeping with what that audience, that age would want to see. Because I was definitely, I never saw, this is the first time I've ever actually picked up the anime, because when I was that age, it was so prohibitively expensive, and I didn't really understand torrents or anything like that. So I was only reading the manga from my local library, the flipped versions even, for a little while there.
Oh, yeah.
But I was entirely reading it for the prurient hope that there would be boobs in it. I was definitely reading for the sex.
There's a little bit of boob. I was first I was just getting into anime. And one of my friends was also starting to get into it in 7th grade. And she had picked up a random VHS of it from Suncoast, I think.
So it was $35 for 4 episodes?
Just episode 15 to 19 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just random episodes. And she lent it to me. And I was just transported. It was unlike anything I had ever seen before. Most of the anime I had watched before was Ranma 1/2 and maybe a few other series. It was the first time that I had ever really seen anything with that sort of melodrama that had really been aimed at my demographic specifically. There's not a whole... at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of nerdy stuff aimed at 12-year-old girls. It was mostly adult, aimed at teenage to adult men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and definitely in visual media. You could find novels and things, but
yeah.
And
that was about the same age that I was getting into Tamora Pierce's stuff too.
Yep.
But in fairness, Tamora Pierce definitely she was way better at handling sex, consent, and assault than Fushigi Yugi.
Oh, yeah. They don't really compare.
They redid my local library, and they had really expanded the teen section, because that was when that sort of started becoming a thing. And they had a bunch of anime and manga. And so they had a bunch of Fushigi Yugi videos. And I checked out whatever there were of them, but it was always just sort of like whatever I could get my hands on. Like, it was before torrents had really become a thing. It was like back when it was like VHS trading. Fan subs was the way to like get anime, not really legally. So it took a really long time to actually like for me to see the series from beginning to end, but it was my favorite anime for a long time. As I've grown up, I've sort of started to realize that it has a lot of not great stuff in it.
Yeah.
Actually, recently I reread the whole manga, and I was reading the author columns, and it was sort of like gave me a different perspective. So in some ways I've come back around a little bit, but it still does a lot of things really poorly. Like, do you guys want to talk like in more, like, do you guys have any stories about how you got into it? Like,
well, it's interesting because like I definitely I read it from beginning to end. The end I think I came back and read later after I'd fallen off. Like, I read all of Watase's stuff that came out, Sere's and like Alice 19th too. But
I was so into Sere's for a while.
I read anything she published. Yeah.
but I don't like. I was definitely consuming them because I was reading all of the manga that was available. But it didn't. I read Fushigi Yugi at around the same time I also read the Gravitation manga, and that was the piece of shit that my like emotions really glommed onto hard, which also, in retrospect, is terrible garbage about terrible relationships.
Yeah, that's a solid comparison, yeah.
I got into Gravitation in like 9th or 10th grade. 10th grade, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. Gravitation. That's a whole other thing, isn't it?
We should do that. Like, if people want us to do that, I can talk for days.
So, like, are we just going to have a series of podcasts where, like, we talk about nostalgically about, like, terrible anime?
It's my favorite problematic of the podcast series. It'll be great. No, that would be fun. But this is technically a my favorite problematic watch-along. So for the folks at home,
we're dragging you down with us.
I would imagine most of the people listening to this probably saw it, because it's not one of those series that you see a lot of people bringing into the fandom, because it's kind of a hard sell at times, because it's like, well, this thing is really important to me, but I am also very aware that it does not age well. So it's not like Utno, where I'm just throwing it at new anime fans, like,
right.
without hesitation. It's one where it's like, I don't know if this is gonna really work for you. Maybe you had to be in a very particular time and place for it.
Yeah, I saw a few people watching it after Crunchyroll put it up, but it was more like morbid curiosity.
It definitely has that reputation now, doesn't it?
Yeah,
it does. I really think it's a pretty damn good teen melodrama fantasy series, and which is part of the reason why I enjoy it. Although I never was into the melodrama aspects. Anyway, my personal history with this show that I kind of love is we had this really cool video store in my hometown that had a bunch of anime. And so my friend and I were already into shows, and we'd been watching stuff like regularly for the last year or something. So we'd seen a lot of different shows, and we were looking over the VHSs trying to figure out what we wanted to watch next. And my friend turns around and points at this one box and goes, "Let's watch that." And the box she pointed to, first of all, it was called The Mysterious Play, which sounds like an erotica.
That's right, because the dub VHS said The Mysterious Play, and the subtitled one said Fushigi Yugi.
Yeah. So she spins her, and all they had at the store was dubbed at that point, because they eventually got DVDs, but all the VHSs were dubbed. So she spins around, and she points at it, and it says the mysterious plan. I'm like, and the box that she points to is the one of the two twins who you dear listeners will meet later, with their arms like all over each other.
God.
And I'm like, I don't think I want to watch a twincest porn. Thank you, best friend, but let's pass. But she kind of kept, and we didn't realize, like, we'd had friends who talked about Fushigi Yugi, but we just didn't make the connection that it was the same show because they'd never referred to it by its English title. And so we kind of just went about our business for a few more weeks, and then finally she talked to me, and she was like, come on, let's just try it. So we grabbed a couple of the boxes, and we took them home. And just, Caitlin, what was the word you used? Transported. I think that's very apt. We were sucked right into the world along with Miaka, and we only watched, like, I don't know, eight or 12 episodes that night, and then we ended up binging, like, the entire thing the next time we got together.
Oh God.
Which is a mistake, because that's a lot of episodes, and you hit the rough patch at like 3 a.m. and you're not having a good time. But we got through it. We really both of us were super into it. It wasn't my first fandom, but it was definitely, like, probably my most passionate and longest. I bought the manga. I have the Genbu Kaiden prequel. I have a freaking character song CD, 3 of the Japanese light novels, 2 art books, a guidebook for the video game that they made, a Chichiri UFO doll. I wrote fan fiction, fan art. I was in text-based RPGs. I got into stupid internet fights about this stupid show. I translated 2 of the routes for this damn video game.
Oh, I forgot there was a video game.
Yeah. So, well, there were technically 2. One's for Genbu Kaiden and the other one's for Fushigi Yugi, and it's Suzaku Ibun, and it's a like retelling of the story where you get to play as a new priestess named Madoka. And you get to choose which of the boys you want to romance, and the decisions you make along the way are like, well, if you screw up, somebody might die. It's not a great game, but it improves upon the story of Fushigi Yugi in a lot of ways, so I might talk about that a little bit as we go.
Please do.
But point being, I love this damn series.
Yep.
And is in
Despite
8th grade,
everything.
I didn't give a lot of thought to why that was. And so part of the fun challenge of this watch-along will be figuring out if I do still love it. And I'm pretty sure I do, because I started tearing up during the opening theme when I first started it for this watch-along. And so if I do still love it, trying to figure out why, because my head knows it is full of problems. So we'll see.
Y'all are adorable, and
we'll
I'm
see.
a dirty poser.
No, I'm really glad we have you on here, because I think it'll be good to have the opinion of someone who's not super warm on it, and plus you've never seen the anime, so this will be an exciting experience for you.
Yeah,
in that regard.
The anime's it's doesn't depart too significantly, but it does some things different.
Yeah, I think the first time I twigged to the fact that the anime had done some things different was when I heard about the infamous torture scene. Oh, I need to use bigger air quotes for that.
Oh, God.
But we'll get to that later. That's not in the manga.
Yeah. So, all right, let's talk about what we watched. So we watched the first 7 episodes, up from the point where Miaka first enters the world to when she leaves it. What did you guys think of the story so far?
I was honestly surprised by... I haven't rewatched this in a long while, partly because it got to the point where I could practically recite the whole thing, so I didn't need to. But as a kid, I hated Miaka.
Oh, me too.
Never liked her. I think half the fun of watching Fushigi Yugi as a kid is watching Miaka and going, "You idiot! We're practically the same age. I could definitely do a better job." And I think there is some appeal to that in that character. But watching it now as an adult, she's not as bad as I remember her being.
I'm way more sympathetic to Miaka, at least in the first few episodes.
I was gonna say that may change as we go, but at this point,
yeah.
I kind of like her. She's frustrating, but in ways that teenagers just are, and the way I know I was. Um, but she has some kind of admirable qualities. Like she's very proactive. She's
Mm-hmm.
persistent. She's spunky. She's also not like a spunky like jerk, I guess. Like she tries to kind of make friends with people and try to make peace when she thinks she's messed up. Like she screws up kind of just out of like hormones and obliviousness. And then when she realizes that she's screwed up, she does that thing that you do as a teenager where you think taking responsibility means like just self-flagellating yourself. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm the worst. I can't believe I caused so much trouble for you, kind of thing. Right. And kind of goes that sort of martyrdom approach a little bit, which is frustrating. But on the other level, I think I can sympathize with that more now that I'm a little bit removed from that age.
Yeah, like she's very anxious too.
Oh yeah.
Is what I've realized is she's going through a lot of stuff. She has anxiety dreams for like 3 anxiety dreams in the first 3 episodes.
Yeah, like every episode starts with an anxiety dream. The first 3 do.
Yeah,
I noticed that too.
And it's really rough, and it sort of made me realize, like, oh, this is actually really, really hard for her in a way that's more relatable now. Like, she's really struggling with the situation she's in, and that has definitely made me more sympathetic to her.
Well, and it's kind of sad too, because in the anxiety dreams and the little bit we see of her with her friends at school, like you get the sense nobody believes in her. Like her friends are like, "Oh, you're going for that school? That's a terrible idea. You shouldn't do that. You're stupid." And then she has that stress dream about her mom, and she's like, "I'm going to go to Jonah," and her mom's like, "It's no use. You can't do that," kind of thing.
Well, and that's interesting because her mom is the one pushing her to go to Jonan.
In the manga, yes.
In the manga, yeah. It's not covered in the anime, but, like, her mom was the one who was like, oh, you need to go to Jonan. Jonan's the best. And if Yui's applying to Jonan, that's a problem because she's smarter than you. And that's one spot that you don't get. Yeah, they don't really cover that in the anime.
It's a small change that kind of makes a big difference because the Miaka in the manga ends up being somebody who really doesn't want to do the things that her mom is forcing her to do, and so the book is something she kind of makes a choice about, like, I'm going to escape to this world so I don't have to deal with this crap. Right. Whereas in the anime, it's more of a she kind of just gets stuck here. So it's a minor change, but it does adjust her arc a little bit. Sorry, Vi, what were you saying?
No, it's good. I find I'm still frustrated with Miaka, but it's not her fault is the thing,
right?
Because I think her character in text first, because like I was surprised rewatching these early episodes how much she does have a character, like she has interests beyond, and she is proactive at least until the plot calls for her to be damseled so that one of her hunky bodyguards can rescue her.
Yeah,
but it's hard to watch that knowing what those traits will become, just in a broad sense. You know, I don't think it's too spoilery to say that part of the reason I think people remember this series of as Miaka as a terrible protagonist is that as the series goes on, her character gets flattened out a lot, often too. Yeah. She likes food, and she's under constant threat of sexual assault.
And she's not very smart.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you get the sense that they were kind of trying to like make her seem more mature going forward, and in the process they ironed out a lot of her kind of fun quirks in the early going, like the fact that she gets angry and is more than happy to just punch people.
Right.
The scene where she decides she's going to use wrestling moves is just the best.
It's very endearing, and then it goes away.
It's almost like she gets punished for being proactive, and you see a little bit more. You do see a little bit of that in these episodes. When she tries to take on the bandits, she's still like, even after she knocks them all down, she still gets almost assaulted anyway by one of them who was able to grab onto her. But she's just she tries. She does her best. And she
does. And she's not totally incompetent in these early episodes. Like, she does have some successes along the way.
Yeah,
even if they're a little
but
limited.
She also, she does so many things where I'm just like, Miaka, no, stop, no, Miaka. Don't chase after the Emperor's carriage asking for a jewel because you have an Emperor in your country. She
should have a concept of, like, you don't just walk up to the Emperor.
And then just watching it, but just watching it as an adult too, there are moments where like in narrative, it's a very effective scene when she's thinking about Yuugi and how much she wants to get into high school. That scene is very well done, and it warmed my heart. But at the same time, as an adult, I'm being like, there's high school, really? That's your ultimate goal? Just to get into a high school? And I know that it's a different culture in Japan, but it's still adult goals?
Yeah, where you go to high school actually can play a big role in determining your future.
It's one of those things that feels very much like, of course this is important to a middle schooler. Of course it is. But as an adult, like, it's not where I'm at anymore, so it gets harder to engage with that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that feels like the end of the world when you're in the moment, and then you look back and it's like, oh, well, that wasn't actually that huge of a deal. What do you think of her relationships with her friends?
Yuugi is best character. That still remains true. I had a major crush on her when I was 12, and it remains true now.
I don't like
Yui's
Yuugi anymore.
Kind of mean.
She's mean as hell to Miaka. And honestly, I feel like that's one of the things that, like, did some damage to me, because I was like, oh, they're mean to each other in an affectionate, jokey way. It's okay for me to talk to people like that, and I ended up actually pissing a lot of people off.
Yeah, that's...
I hadn't thought of that, but yeah.
That's totally fair. I guess maybe I am thinking down the line where, like, she gets villainized a lot for things that she should be legitimately angry about.
Careful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to get too much into that, and there is more to come. But yeah, no, at this point, you feel kind of bad for her because, like, we don't really see a lot of them together. Like, the flashback of them growing up, I think, does a lot to sort of humanize and soften that relationship, because up until that point, all we've really seen is Yuugi kind of insult her and then just, like, yell at her, like, you better come back because I told you to.
Yeah, like, she calls Miaka stupid. Like, she doesn't treat her nice. Like, I don't understand why they are friends, as I'm sort of watching these first few episodes. Like, they don't seem to have anything in common. Yuugi just talks about how dumb Miaka is all the time.
And maybe they're the kind of friends who, became besties in kindergarten, and just as they grew up, kind of started going separate directions, but because they've been friends for so long, they still hang out all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had friends like that. Like, literally, I have a friend who I've been friends with since kindergarten, and our interests have diverged and come back together and diverged, and we've stayed friends through all of that. But yeah, like, I never treated her the way that Yuugi treats Miaka. And, like, her Fu and Morin are, like, bit characters, but they also sort of join in on picking on Miaka, and no wonder this girl has, like, no self-esteem. Everyone just treats her so terribly. And then she gets to this other world, and everyone's like, hey,
they're like, hey.
Yeah, but she's important here, and people actually worry about her too. Like, so it's not just like, oh, you're this great person who can do this great thing. It's also like, hey, are you okay? If you need to, like, take a break, we'll do that. And I think that combination is kind of appealing to her. One of the things I like about the book, this second watch through, is I think in some ways it kind of turns into almost this, like, grand metaphor for, like, all of your sort of fears and hopes about growing up in adulthood, because
Yeah,
you have...
and that's something that I wanted to get into later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should we wait?
No, we can talk about it now.
Okay.
Like, it's very much about sort of the anxieties of a teenage girl, and sort of the whole series sort of feels that way, sort of in retrospect. Like, you know, she wants to be, she wants boys to be into her, but it seems like no one's really been interested in her in real life. She wants to be, like, cool and powerful and beloved, but she's also got a lot of anxieties about her future, and about her relationships and just the world around her. And a lot of these seem to get expressed through what she goes through in the universe of the Four Gods.
Yeah. It's kind of they do a lot of, I think it kind of runs the gamut of things you sort of imagine that high school and adulthood will be like when you're that age. Because, like, you know, like, there's, like, the dream for, like, the straight girl kind of dream she has of, like, oh, all the boys will fawn over me. But then it happens and it's actually really stressful. And then, you know, kind of the freedom of, like, she can just get up and travel and kind of go where she wants. But at the same time, there's this added responsibility of being the priestess that she really doesn't start to feel until the mirror version of her shows up and starts, like, starts hurting them. And she's like, oh shit, this is my responsibility. Yeah. But then there's also, so you've got, like, kind of like the expectations of adulthood, which I think responsibilities comes into that. And then, like, the ideals of it, which is, like, sexuality and freedom. And then you also have, like, those kind of, like, creeping fears, which is the constant threat of sexual assault that she runs into during these early episodes.
I counted how many threats of sexual assault there were in the first few episodes.
We need a counter.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing these episode summaries, and I do have a sexual assault counter.
Oh no. When your show has a sexual assault counter, that might be a problem.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me see if I can... Oh, no, that's not the link I wanted to click.
It is definitely one of those things where, like, the show... I kept running into this thing while watching these early episodes where the show would do something really, like, good and interesting, and then it would plunge headlong into the depths of melodrama.
Yeah.
Like, there's that really great scene where, you know, Miaka goes up to the Emperor to ask him for his stuff, and you could see, like, Tamahome being impressed by her, and you can see, like, maybe that's where he starts to be interested. And then, like, immediately the next episode, he's in her bedroom, telling her to cry against his manly chest, and I'm like, all right, that went quickly.
Yeah.
Or then, like, there's that great scene in the mirror where she's freaking out because, of course she is. Nobody told her how to do this job they're all expecting her to do.
Yeah.
So she stabs herself in the chest.
Yeah.
All right, that took a turn.
Yeah. All right. There were 5 sexual assaults in the first 4 episodes, and then it cooled off. And there weren't any for the next 3, which is where we are right now.
Yeah.
Golf clap, golf clap.
I thought we had reached a point where there were quite fewer of them. And so, like, on the one hand, I want to give the show a little bit of credit for acknowledging that is a very real anxiety of, I mean, women in general, but I think especially teenage girls, as you're, like, starting to feel the waters of, like, well, I might, you know, want to make out with people and have sex, but there's always that fear in the back of your head, like,
right.
what if this goes
there's
wrong?
the sense that other people are starting to look at you that way as well.
Well, and the fact that she keeps running into slave traders, I think, is sex slave traders in this season, I think it's like very literal objectification.
Yeah, and, you know, like, I think it's relevant that Watase was so young when she started writing it. She was 22 years old. Yeah. Because she was still very tapped into those anxieties, and she said, like, in her chat columns, she does reference to, like, she still suffers from a lot. She was still suffering from a lot of anxiety. Related to work, but if she's just a generally anxious person, then the manga is going to be covering a lot of that. And oh boys, there are a lot of boys taking notice of Miaka in this series.
Well, two currently. There might be more.
Is this the proto reverse harem? Like, is this the
I don't know if it's the first.
There had to have been.
It's
I think in the West, I think over here it's kind of like the early sort of famous one. I couldn't say for Japan just because we don't have a lot of access to like 80s and 70s manga. It's definitely a famous one.
Yeah. It's definitely a popular example. I was so into Hotohori when I was a teenager. Like, yeah,
I didn't really
years old,
understand why Miaka was into Tamahome when Hotohori was right there when I was
15. But
like,
honestly, Hotohori has probably stood the test of time the least of any of the characters so far.
I think you're right. I think you are correct.
He is not.
Although I'd forgotten Tamahome had a character at all besides just pining after Miaka. Like, when it was like, oh yeah, he's at Skinflint. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that was
I mean, he doesn't have that much. That's pretty much his only other character trait so far.
Well, and he's kind of sassy and spunky early on.
Yeah.
He and Miaka have kind of a fun back and forth in the first few episodes. And he's kind of got a big brother vibe going on.
Which
a little bit
weird
with her at
and
first.
creepy.
It is. Well, and it's kind of the thing I almost. So watching it this time, I also didn't like Tamahome very much my first time through. It's weird how much I love the show given how completely uninvested in the main couple I was. But the thing I kind of enjoy sort of cringily, I guess, watching it this time through is Tamahome to me is a realistically shitty teenager.
Yeah, because he's only 17.
He's 17. He's honestly like pretty nice to her, and they have. I mean, he's not like the nicest guy ever, but he's pretty decent to her early on. And then once she tells him she likes him, he just freaks out and doesn't know what to say, and then just starts like being a jerk to her. And that very much feels like how do communicate as a teen, like to the sense you're like, well, he could probably figure that out. And their relationship is so realistically shitty teenage relationship in terms of no one knowing what to say, and everyone's hormones are smacking into each other, and they're getting jealous over the dumbest shit.
Oh God, he'll reject her. And then the next episode, like Hotohori is flirting with her, and he just has the poutiest baby face on.
My
God.
And then Nuriko throws a table at him and says, "Why are you acting so upset?
God,
you're the one who
Nuriko's
rejected
so
her."
Good. But Tamahome, has like improved with age. Hotohori though, he's so fucking entitled to Miaka and her body. He like pushes her down on the bed and forces her to sleep in his room
pretty much
and
immediately.
She's so not comfortable with it.
Yeah, you can tell she is not into that.
Yeah, it's really like he's really violating her boundaries over and over. Does he talk about like the only woman he's ever wanted for his own life in these episodes?
Yeah, he did. And it is in fact the priestess of Suzaku. He is in love with the idea of Miaka.
Exactly.
That he has placed upon a lovely pedestal in his brain.
And he doesn't know her.
No,
but
not
he's
at all.
like he's like, oh, she's 15 and he's 18, not super appropriate.
It wouldn't have been that weird in dynastic China because it would have been fairly common for girls to be marrying at 15 and guys to be marrying at 18. But I hear your point. I know. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, for the time period, it wouldn't have been that weird.
But yeah, like he knows nothing about her. He's known her for like maybe a week at this point. And he's confessing his love to her. And
he asks her to marry him, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, like, when Tamahome is being weird and, like, offering Miaka a shoulder to cry on, that at least, like, it feels like the anime's moving too fast, but it feels like Tamahome is sincere in like, a not overreaching kind of way, as opposed to Hotohori, who's clearly got designs in a creepy way.
And Miaka and Tamahome at that point have at least been through a lot together in a relatively short amount of time. Like, they've been kidnapped, captured, chased around, almost stabbed by guards.
And he's saved her, and like it's pretty natural that she would be into him.
Suspension bridge effect.
And And he's like, he is not instantly throwing himself into being in love with her. Mm-mm. Like, he is hesitant for his own personal reasons, and like, he doesn't know her super well. And Tamahome has withstood the test of time as a character way more, and it's so funny how my opinions have
flipped
reversed
a little bit.
Yeah. They really have.
Yeah. I started warming up to Tamahome when I was playing the video game, partly because, well, first of all, it turns out when you get him away from Miaka, he has more of a personality, which is fun. And two, in the video game, he is voiced by Miyano Mamoru, and that man is very charming. So
wait, Tamahome?
Tamahome in the Suzaku Ibun video game is voiced by Miyano Mamoru.
Oh, okay. He's Hikaru Midorikawa
in the anime. Yes. Yeah. Miyano was like 12 when the anime came out, I think, so that wouldn't have worked. He voices him in the video game, and I was like, oh, you're kind of cute and charming. When did that happen? And then Hotohori is when I started to cool off on Hotohori while playing the video game, for all the reasons we've discussed, but also he's a pain in the ass to translate. He talks like he has a giant stick up his ass, and it's very annoying.
Oh, he's the emperor.
I mean, that's true. He is the emperor. So he kind of has to talk like that. But it's still annoying. He's also not a great emperor.
No, yeah. My kingdom will be fine while I go off on this quest about this girl that I, like.
With no guards. Like, not even, like, a couple undercover to keep an eye on them.
Oh, that is so... Why would he...
He's not a very good emperor.
No, well...
There are worse emperors, but he's not great. He's 18. He's got a lot of hormones.
Apparently, apparently he doesn't, because he hasn't patronized his harem at all.
Okay, he's got a lot of pent up hormones. Yeah, he has not. He has not patronized his harem at all. That is a light novel fact coming to you from someone who has read the summaries or sometimes the complete translations of the light novels. Aren't you guys glad you have me on for all of this useless trivia that's been shoved in my head for like the last 10 to 15 years?
It's delightful.
Well, if he had patronized his harem, he would have met Nuriko earlier on. Subtle transition. Best character in the show across the board. Not a undisputable fact, not an opinion.
No, a fact. A scientific fact.
One of the best characters. Agreed.
And I think before we get in further, we discussed some before we started recording that we wanted to use neutral pronouns for Nuriko because they don't have them in the Japanese track. Am I right?
Yes, and talking about Nuriko's gender, it's a tangled fucking mess.
It is, and we might need the entire rest of this podcast just to unravel some of the lines this particular episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into that.
Well, because they talk about, when Tamahome is being a shitty teen who is shitty, that Nuriko does talk about the fact that they're a woman at heart. That like they have that line, at least as the subtitles translated it.
Yeah, right. It's their kokoro is that of a woman. So yeah, soul. So it's soul in the manga, heart in the anime. So that's
right.
Good.
And like a lot of that sort of like Nuriko's backstory is.
Yeah,
we won't go into it, but it's a mess.
We will have plenty of time to talk about that later when we get to it. That tangle. But that's part of the reason for the listeners, if they are watching along with us, part of the reason we're using they and not she at this point is because of some stuff later.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just gonna stick with they. And I apologize. I may slip into she occasionally just because that's habit for me. But I will do my very best to correct. I will correct myself if I mess up.
Well, I mean, I think the listeners can, even if they don't know any spoilers, they can get a sneak preview of the shitty things that are going to go down later. Because frankly, a lot of people are really shitty to Nuriko in these episodes.
Yeah.
And I hate it.
It's like I can kind of cut Miaka a little bit of slack because her reaction to me strikes me very much as something a 15-year-old in 1992 would say.
Yeah.
If they met a trans person, they'd be like, "Wait, so you look like this, but you're in love with it. What are gay people?" Like, to me, that's kind of I could see a teenager in 1992 being like that. It's the other characters and some of the other reactions that happen in the story where the problem comes in.
Right.
Yeah, no, like, and also, like, not understanding gender identity. I mean, 25 years ago, like, most people's understanding of like transness and different gender identities was really, really either
non-existent almost.
Yeah. Yeah, non-existent or like probably pretty shitty.
What Tase does this really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Bri.
No, I was just going to cast shitty side eye at Please Save My Earth, which came out after this, I think. It is worse.
The manga is the first volume of Please Save My Earth right here.
The manga is before. The manga was like an 80s
I think the manga was like 1989 or something.
Oh well, then Fushigi Yugi is
1987. It is as old as I am.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible. Was the point?
Yes,
the point.
It's a mess. But yeah, you kind of get the sense, like, I've always kind of felt like Watase's heart was kind of in the right place with Nuriko. Like, I think she wanted to really kind of explore like gender identity and sexuality with this character, and she wanted to kind of place Nuriko in sort of this like non-binary state, which again, like, I approve of the intent.
Right.
The process is just extremely insensitive and tone deaf in a lot of ways.
Right. Well, I think I'm not sure about now, but like especially back then, in Japan and in the US, like people kind of conflated gender identity and sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there was
lot
of...
They tend to see them as like sort of intermixed and not like two totally separate things. So it's like, oh, you're a man in love with a man, and of course you have the soul of a woman.
You're an Okama, of course you are.
Yeah, like or like something that people bring up with Sailor Moon. It's like, oh, it's so progressive. Haruka's
if
non-binary.
Another person talks about them, I'm going to fucking strangle them.
No, because they say she has the soul of a man and a woman because she's a butch lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
Like
that's just the mangaka being shitty. The same mangaka who was like, oh, well, those high school girls have a lot of time on their hands to imply that they'd grow out of this phase that they're in, and I hate it. I kind of hate the Sailor Moon manga, you guys.
Yeah. But anyway, like, Nuriko
Same time period, incidentally. Sailor Moon started running like 6 months before Fushigi Yugi, so this is all kind of coming together.
But Nuriko, like, when they first enter, they're, like, really, like, catty, unpleasant.
Yeah,
really
just
catty and unpleasant to
super
Miaka.
jerk.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't, like, just... And, like they kiss Tamahome without permission.
And cart him around for about an episode just tied up, which is not okay, regardless of the person's gender.
Still not, like, and I actually included that on the sexual assault counter because it's like, it's not okay to just walk up to someone and kiss them because you think they're pretty.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things where, like, I can not necessarily excuse but understand, like, with Miyaka's reactions in the narrative makes sense as somebody who's a jealous teenage girl and sees Nuriko as a rival. Like, of course, as a teen, she's gonna be kind of shitty, and they get closer and she gets over it, and that's fine. That's an arc she can have. It's that the rest of the narrative goes out of its way to, like, excuse and kind of, like, normalize everybody else having that awful reveal moment.
Right.
And then use that for comedy.
Yeah. Well, Hotohori's reaction wasn't that bad.
I honestly,
just goes,
thing I will give Fushigi Yugi.
Another man who's as beautiful as I am?
Yeah. Like, they're reasonably chill about it, all things considered. It's not handled. The worst part for me is the nyan-nyans are just assholes.
Oh my god.
Scene.
And Taitsukun.
So thank you for punching them. That scene is shitty. The scene in the woods when evil Miaka outs Nuriko is honestly, like, watching that, I almost started tearing up because I was like, oh god, this is horrible. And I thought they didn't play it for laughs in the anime. And so I did kind of like that. Like, Nuriko is genuinely shocked, runs away crying. And as a nice bonus, gets to drop a boulder on that little a-hole later. So
I think they almost nailed it, but then having the comedy tree demolition.
Yeah, I think that's
them just kind of shattering the trees. It again, it kills the moment, but to me it didn't come across as like, haha, let's laugh at this person. Does that make sense? Like, it was more just like, oh, Nariko's super strong.
It could be worse, I don't know if I agree. But it's not great.
In the manga, it's a lot less sensitive. Like, the manga's kind of a jerk about it. The anime at least made an attempt to make that moment like sort of land emotionally, like, so you get a feel for the fact that Nuriko is upset.
Yeah.
But it's not particularly well handled.
But it's like when they're out on Mount Taikyoku, and Tamahome and Hotohori have just sliced open their wrists and bled all over Miaka.
Which is not how anything works.
I love how Yuwatase herself makes fun of that moment.
Yeah, there's parodies of that scene. Like, there's multiple parodies of it in the manga, which is pretty good.
A few minutes later, Nuriko is the only one.
My favorite thing about that scene is Nuriko basically being like, "You guys aren't helping. You're not."
Yeah, Taitsukun's like, "You're all very low on blood," and Nuriko's like, "You can have some of mine," and Taitsukun's like, "Save it."
Yeah,
I'm just like, what the fuck?
What the fuck are you trying to imply?
That's that's so shit. Like,
yeah.
Why does everyone shit on Nuriko all the time? Like, are you the American Red Cross or something? I don't know.
Which, and I mean, that does lead to the metaphorical blood threesome, but still, like.
Oh God, that scene was very weird.
Like, tell me that's not what that scene was.
I can feel both of their bloods entering my body.
Oh God!
I can feel their warmth
simultaneously.
Oh God!
Good teamwork, boys.
Well, they did have that great scene about how well the other one handles a sword.
Oh yes, I posted that from the manga. It's very wink, a little bit there. Yeah, I mean, really, a polyamorous solution seems like a good way to go here. But so
except
far,
for the fact that Hotohori is a jerk. But beyond
that, that's true. I don't actually want him to hook up with anybody.
Yeah,
I used to ship him with Nuriko.
Better. Right,
yeah, I used to ship him with Nuriko, and now I'm like, no, you can do better, Nuriko. You can find someone better.
Yeah, they can absolutely do better. That scene in particularly made me so mad.
Yeah.
And Noriko's like, why do I feel like I've just been insulted? I'm like, because you have.
You were.
Like, you're
deeply
being insulted.
Like something like dirty and degenerate. What the fuck?
And like the Nyan-Nyans being like, oh, I'll fix your perversion.
God, that's the worst. At least Nuriko gets to hit her.
Yeah.
But
good. It's got to be the most I've ever been in favor of like 90s anime hyperviolence.
Yeah, there's a lot of the 90s anime slapstick in this, which is kind of fun. You don't see it as much anymore, and their faces are all wacky looking, and so I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah,
there. Some of the 90s stuff is like a nice fuzzy throwback. I do. What, like Miaka being naked and having no nipples, I may have had to take some time to stop and laugh.
That's anime right there.
Yeah.
That actually, that brings up something that I think is kind of interesting about this series, just talking about Miaka being naked. It has those moments of, like, Tamahome walks in on her when she takes off her bra, or, like, the panty shot. And it's kind of interesting to me because Watase has talked about how she really liked Shounen growing up and was really influenced by that. And I think that might be part of the reason this series kind of appealed to me growing up, is because it does kind of have some of the structure and tropes of a Shounen combined with some of those more like emotionally oriented, character driven type shoujo arcs where it's like, feeling save the day kind of stuff, because you've got collection quest. One thing I noticed on this watch through that I hadn't really paid attention to before, there's like 3 or 4 times in these 7 episodes alone where characters pull that you call yourself a man, a real man would do this, a real man would do this, and that's very shonen to me. and then just kind of the way the series is very sort of constant movement and conflicts and arcs and things like that.
It is very action driven for a shoujo series.
Well, I mean,
and I like that.
Yeah.
I like action shoujo.
Oh God, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not the first shoujo manga that's action driven. Like, no. I mean, shoujo honestly has a really great history of like action fantasy and science fiction. Right now I'm looking at my bookshelf and I see like Basara, which I think preceded Fushigi Yugi.
Yeah, I think it was a late 80s show. It might have gone past Fushigi Yugi too. It's long. Well, I mean, just thinking like manga. The first, I mean, Princess Knight is kind of considered the first shoujo, and it's very much an adventure series. And then Rose of Versailles has a lot of kind of it's a little bit of a mix of like the kind of more, I guess, like what you'd call maybe like the high school drama elements of shoujo, and then the more kind of action driven. But yeah, it's not the first one by any stretch, but I think knowing that Watase has this background in shonen makes some of the decisions, like even some of the bad decisions, make more sense, like the panty shot and things like that, where it's like, oh, okay, that's a trope you think needs to be in a romance story. I get it.
And, you know, even that it all feels so quaintly tame almost, because like, you know, he sees her naked, but the camera stays at like a mid shot.
Yeah.
Like,
her underwear fits, like her bra actually fits her well.
Yeah, it's nice. It is. It's quaint 90s-isms in a way, which is kind of fun.
And I mean, like, she's still very stylized in shoujo, and I always feel like with her and Usagi that they should be bigger characters. If you're going to make them love food, fine, let me have it.
Yeah.
But even still, she has realistic-ish human proportions.
Yeah, she does. Watase, I think, has talked about that too. She likes drawing characters with curves. Like, it bugs her.
Although
the kind of
in
like
there was like a character profile that's like, oh, she's 5'4" and 120 pounds. She still has some body fat, and I'm just like, fucking
bullshit.
Japan.
Yeah. In the
Fucking
manga, it does say
Japan.
she's slightly pudgy, and I'm like, okay.
No, she's not. Like, if you want Miaka to be fat, just let her be fat. Like, how great would that be in this series where all the handsome men are falling over themselves for her?
That would be wonderful.
It was something really interesting when Nuriko was like actually picking on Miaka, you know, and Hotohori's like, why are you bullying her? And she's just like, she's just a little girl, and she showed up and everyone's obsessed with her. It's like, yeah, no, she is just a girl. Like,
yeah,
like what's so special about her? Nothing.
Well, and
like she's a teenage, she's just a 15-year-old girl, like, and everyone's falling all over themselves for her. And you know, that is like the fantasy, but I feel like Nuriko was not wrong in being, I mean, Nuriko should not have bullied her the way they did, but like, I feel like it was written as if it's coming from a place of jealousy, but it's not. Nuriko's not wrong to be confused by it.
Yeah. Well, and again, fun trivia tidbit. The harem that has formed at the palace has been there for like a year, and it was everyone there knew that the reason the emperor didn't visit was because he was waiting on the priestess of Suzaku. So Nuriko has spent a year kind of pining after this guy, and she has known that he's in love with an idea, basically. So I think some of Nuriko, some of their frustration comes from like just this extended period of time where a lot of people had kind of this idea of what the priestess of Suzaku would be, Nuriko included. And so when she gets there, there's a lot of kind of frustration and confusion on the part of the characters who actually pay attention to Miyaka's personality and who she is, and the fact that she is a, you know, well-meaning but kind of clumsy teenager. As opposed to Hotohori, who has basically just decided she's the best thing ever.
And that's got to be doubly frustrating for Nuriko, because if you're going to love an ideal, it might as well be anybody. And Nuriko is beautiful and talented and has literally trained for this.
And
why
has
can't
super
it be
strength.
Me? Yeah, I too am magical.
That would be frustrating.
There was like one scene where like Miaka and Tamahome were attacked by bandits, and Nuriko was like, yeah, I'm gonna let you guys handle it. I'm just like, Nuriko, you can literally walk in, pick them up, and throw them. Why are you not helping them out?
Because Nuriko was kind of a jerk early on.
Yeah.
I really hated Nuriko for those early episodes the first time I saw the show, and then very quickly Nuriko becomes a very likable character.
Yeah,
and it's kind of a sudden about face, but
it's almost like once they establish that Nuriko is not a woman and thus not a legitimate romantic rival.
Yeah,
Nuriko and
there is
Miaka
definitely
can
an
be
element
friends.
of women be competing. Like through this entire series.
Yeah.
There is. Yeah. Well, and there's also a shitty undercurrent of I guess Nuriko can't hook up with Hotohori because they were assigned male at birth, which is also shitty.
And I was paying attention, and I noticed that like after the shitty reveal, and after they heal Miaka, they start drawing Nuriko differently. Like their clothing is less pinched at the waist. Their shoulders look broader. And it kind of made me sad.
Well, they also start wearing men's clothes.
Not yet. They're still in their in their courtesan outfit right now.
But like after later they start wearing men's clothes for traveling in, which that's more practical.
It is. Yeah, no, I mean switching honestly, one of the things that drives me bonkers about this series is that Miaka insists on wearing her school uniform everywhere.
The fact that the school uniform is a plot point.
Well, when we see her in non-school uniform clothes, her clothes are so ugly.
Well,
but that's
no.
We'll see that next time.
What I mean is like they hide her leaving the city because the uniform's going to draw attention.
Oh,
you do realize you have clothes. You are at a palace. You can very easily get clothes tailored to made for this girl, and she can wander around your kingdom and not draw attention to the fact that she's showing like all of the leg, which would be very strange for the time period. Like I never got why she didn't switch into clothes from that area and blend in better. It bugs me.
Yeah. All right. So we should probably start wrapping up. Any final thoughts?
I mean, I do want to watch more of it. We've been having a great time at my house, Mystery Science Theatering the thing.
Oh yeah. No, it's super fun to watch with other people.
It definitely is. I've watched it with friends most of the times I have watched it, and it's always a different experience, and it always makes it fun. And it's one of those shows that I can simultaneously sincerely and also just tease relentlessly.
Otakon drinking games.
Yes.
Are we ready to close out the episode?
Next time we'll be watching episodes 7 through 14. Did we decide?
7 through 14. Yep.
Yeah, listeners, normally with the watch-alongs we do 6 episodes, but Fushigi Yugi is
very
52,
long.
Which doesn't divide up neatly, and then the midway point is kind of at an awkward spot anyway. So we're going to be doing 7 episodes for a few of them, and then 6 for most of them as we head towards the end. So we'll let you know at the end of every podcast how many to watch. So this next week, it will be 7 episodes.
Right, so episodes 8 to 14 for next week.
Yes.
See you there. And I just want to mention that I have a few panels coming up at upcoming conventions. At Otakon, I will be doing a panel about abuse and romance in shoujo manga. And I will also be doing a panel about awesome women making anime with Rose Bridges of Anime News Network. And then at Anime Fest, I will also be doing the romance and shoujo manga panel, in addition to a panel discussing different approaches to analyzing anime from a feminist point of view without necessarily going to, is this feminist or not? I'll be doing a panel about isekai shoujo series from the 1990s with Megan of Manga Test Drive. Do you guys have anything you want to plug?
I think so. We got a lot of it done up at the top. Just need to plug stuff for the site now, I think.
Yes. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you like what you heard, tell your friends and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. And if you really liked what you heard, consider tossing us $1 or $2 on our Patreon every month. Your support really helps the site. Because of the Patreon, we can pay Peter for editing these episodes. We can pay our contributors. We can have people going to conventions who wouldn't be able to otherwise. And if you're interested in more from the team and our contributors, please check us out at www.animefeminist.com or on Facebook at AnimeFem, on Tumblr at AnimeFeminist, and on Twitter also at AnimeFeminist.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Later, Annie fam.